Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Nerdy Movie News Roundup, the show where we round up all of the latest news in the world of nerdy movies. We got some interesting stories to talk about today, as we do every week, because I would never bring you uninteresting stories. Why? Let's get into the first one. So it looks like we know when we're going to get our first look at the Xbox Indiana Jones game. This is coming from Video Games Chronicle. Xbox and Bethesda will live stream a new developer direct presentation on Thursday, January 18th. We'll visit Machine Games in Sweden to check in on their Indiana Jones game, Microsoft said. So that's pretty neat. This game is in an interesting place because I feel like when Uncharted came out, it was kind of this thing that was like, oh, that's cute. You're trying to be like Indiana Jones. That's neat. I mean, you're not as beloved as this classic franchise Indiana Jones that doesn't have any blemishes. And then, actually, I don't remember if Crystal Skull would have come out after the first Uncharted. But in any case, where we're at in like 2024, Uncharted is like one of the most beloved PlayStation franchises. And now for Xbox, who, Xbox, don't come at me, but Xbox first party exclusives aren't really all that hot right now. And for them to be making an Indiana Jones game, it's like, and with Indiana Jones being this IP that just bombed at the box office, it's like, we're now looking at this Xbox Indiana Jones game that it's like, oh, that's cute. Xbox is trying to do an Uncharted. I mean, this is kind of how it feels. Obviously the classic Indiana Jones movies are never going to be looked down upon or anything like that, but just where this game is very specifically coming out in this point in time, being made by Xbox, that's kind of how it comes off as. But I don't know, Machine Games is definitely a great developer. They make like the Wolfenstein games, from what I understand. And there's a lot of questions like, those games are first person. Are they transitioning to third person here? Could you make a first person Indiana Jones game? Because if they were to do that, then this probably actually wouldn't even be like an Uncharted copy. But we also know that Xbox probably wants like their third person behind the shoulder sort of game to rival PlayStation. You would imagine that that's part of what they want with this. So I don't know. I'm interested to see it. Hopefully it's great and Xbox can have like a great exclusive, because I feel like weirdly enough, it feels like Hi-Fi Rush. And listen, I love Hi-Fi Rush. Don't get me wrong. This isn't me trying to talk down on Hi-Fi Rush, but it's like when you look at like PlayStation that has Spider-Man 2 and Uncharted, and it's like the one great Xbox exclusive that's come out recently is like Hi-Fi Rush. I mean, yeah, that's just kind of where they're at. So I don't know. We'll see. Also, but I will also say that I'm actually not a huge fan of Indiana Jones. Like, I've only ever seen the Crystal Skull, so I definitely need to get caught up with the original trilogy, and maybe, just maybe, watch the last Disney one, because why not? All right, next story. It looks like we're getting a Mandalorian movie. This is coming from Deadline. The Mandalorian and Grogu, to be directed and produced by the Mandalorian creator Jon Favreau. It's not yet confirmed. It's not yet been confirmed whether Pascal will reprise his role as the Mandalorian for the new film. At present, a fourth season of his hit series is also in development. So yeah, this is very interesting. I mean, Jon Favreau, he's a guy that has kind of... he really was the guy that made the MCU what it was, right? I mean, with that first Iron Man movie, he started the greatest franchise in film history. And say what you will about, or when I say the greatest franchise in film history, I mean just like the biggest one. Obviously, subjective, taste subjective, blah, blah, blah. But, and listen, say what you will about the Lion King remake, it is the highest grossing animated movie of all time. So it's like, Jon Favreau did that, So where Star Wars is at right now, I actually feel like it's like, just putting Mandalorian aside for a second, getting Jon Favreau to direct a Star Wars movie is pretty smart. It's like absolutely he should be doing this. And then as far as it being a Mandalorian movie, as much as like for me, especially considering at first I thought this was replacing a season 4, but apparently a season 4 would still happen. I think it's kind of teetering on like, okay, I think you might be you might be using Mando and Grogu specifically. You might be overusing it, but it's also probably pretty safe. I mean, we saw with the Marvels that the whole like streaming shows transitioning into movies, it wasn't very successful there, but I would argue that Grogu is pretty like he's kind of a global phenomenon to where I think like kids and families, I think they'll probably go like, okay, even if I haven't seen The Mandalorian, I'll watch a Grogu movie. I'll watch or not even Grogu. It's like I'll watch the Baby Yoda movie. It's fine, whatever. I'll take my kids. I'll take my grandkids to the Baby Yoda movie. Like I could see that happening. So I don't think that this movie would like fall into the pitfalls of WandaVision, or not WandaVision, of the Marvels. Because I also think that the Marvels probably just has other issues around it. But so I don't know. I would be more confident of the Mandalorian, transitioning into a movie a lot better than the Marvels did. So yeah, I don't know. I think this is overall a pretty smart move. Specifically getting Jon Favreau to just direct the fucking movie, and even The Mandalorian, I think it's a safe bet. And I think that they should probably try to get this out before that Rey solo movie comes out, because I think that if Disney can come out with a well-received Mandalorian movie and then lead into the Rey solo movie, because that movie already has so much negativity around it, and it's going to have negativity around it inherently. I think maybe softening audiences up with a good, solid Mandalorian movie, I think that would be the way to go. So I think it's smart. We'll obviously have to wait and see how it all handles. All right, next up, we officially have our Abby and some other cast members. So Kaitlyn Dever is playing Abby. This was kind of funny. So you can see that the original tweet was Max X account, basically saying Kaitlyn Dever has joined the cast of the HBO original series The Last of Us for season 2. But they didn't specify that she was playing Abby. And then like Naughty Dog is quote tweeting them. There's like, we're thrilled that Kaitlyn Dever is joining The Last of Us season 2 as Abby. It's like they were like, hey morons, you should probably mention that she's playing Abby. But yeah, this is funny casting, just because I remember this actress was like specifically being fan casted to play Ellie originally, and yeah, because I mean, just from this picture, she looks like Ellie, like the game model Ellie. So it's just inherently funny to cast her as Abby. No spoilers for the second game if you haven't played it, but yeah, I mean, I'm sure this is fine casting. I've only ever seen her in Booksmarts, and she was good in that. The only thing is that she's a very tiny person. And this is Abby in the game. She's going to have to work out. Now, she's going to have to hit the weights. Now, I think the smart thing to do would be to have, like, get whatever you can together right now. Because in the game, I don't want to spoil it, but there are, like, flashbacks, right, to when Abby was younger. I think you get Kaitlyn Dever as a tiny person, film the flashback scenes, then she starts working out like an animal, she starts taking the Hollywood steroids, she gets all jacked, and then you sort of transition into filming the second season. I think that would be smart. I don't know if they are going to do that, because I think didn't Sam Raimi do that with Tobey Maguire? I think he filmed all of his all of his scenes before he got the powers, before the scene in the mirror where he was all like jacked or whatever. So yeah, I don't know. I think it's probably fine casting. And then we also have Dina. She's being played by Isabella Merced. So this actress is kind of blowing up. She played Dora the Explorer, but she's also playing Hawkgirl in Superman Legacy, so you assume that she's going to be a pretty big part of the DCU. And her most anticipated film that's coming out is going to be Madam Web. Of course, that's gonna be massive. So Isabella Merced, and she's playing Dina in The Last of Us season 2. So this is Dina in the game. So yeah, I mean, this is pretty good casting, I think. And yeah, she's a really great character. I really like her. I've never seen Isabella Merced in anything, I'm not gonna lie, but I will be seeing her in Madam Web. So hopefully she impresses in that movie, I guess. I don't know. And then we also have this guy, Young Mazzino. That is his name. Google doesn't lie. So he's going to be playing Jesse. I accidentally flashed to Jesse. This is the character in the game. So yeah, this is obviously just visually pretty good casting. Now, I've never seen Young Mazzino in anything either. Apparently, he was in the Netflix show Beef, which I haven't seen, but from the reading that I did, people say that not only like was he in Beef, but he gave out like one of the standout performances, and that's when people say that like Steven Yeun and is it Ali Wong? I think was she in that movie as well. But it was like Steven Yeun and Ali Wong, I think. Well, I could be wrong about the actress's name. My apologies. But like they gave like really great performances, like really fantastic performances, and that this Young Mazzino guy also gave a great performance. So I don't know. He seems like it seems like this is a really good cast for casting for Jesse. Yeah, Jesse's also a really good character. I really like him in the game as well. So seems like pretty good casting all around. I think the only vague question mark is going to be around Abby, just because she's not necessarily there physically just yet, but I mean, yeah, she can just work out like an animal, and I'm sure she'll get there. And I guess it's probably mostly just important that she's physically imposing to Ellie. And we know that Bella Ramsey is also like an even tinier human being, so I'm sure it's fine. All right. Next story. Oh, and also it should just be noted, Kaitlyn Dever, I know you're watching. Just delete all of your social media. Just you don't need it. You don't need it anywhere. You don't need to go on there. Just, No, I don't want to go into detail as to why, but just do it. Okay. Next story. Ahsoka has been confirmed for a season 2. So, the Star Wars Twitter account says, the story continues. Ahsoka season 2 now in development with Dave Filoni. And they post this like concept art, it looks like, where the Ahsoka and it looks like Sabine standing on one of the, what is it, the Talus? Mortis god statues? I don't really understand like the mythology that they're building up with the gods or whatever. Like, I don't even really remember those episodes of like the Clone Wars that well. Did they touch on it in Rebels? I don't even know, but I guess Dave Filoni is wanting to go somewhere with it, so I don't really know where all that is going, but it seems like that's going to be a heavy focus of Ahsoka season 2. And I'm a little surprised that this got the greenlit. The greenlight, just because the first season didn't really do all that well viewership-wise. And Dave... but then again, Dave Filoni he got promoted at Star Wars, so I'm sure he pushed for his own show to get greenlit. So yeah, I don't know. I didn't love Ahsoka season 1. It because I got caught up with Rebels in order to watch Ahsoka season 1, and I feel like watching Rebels, like the show, might have even made Ahsoka even worse, because it didn't necessarily feel like a satisfying continuation of that story. So, I mean, listen, I like Dave Filoni. I appreciate him, and I think that Ahsoka season 1 probably proves that he's not. He wasn't quite ready to do his own live action thing, seemingly without having the help of someone else like a Jon Favreau. So I'm hoping that he learned, and that maybe he can come back with season 2. And that's the thing, man. Like, Ahsoka season 1 also makes me really nervous about him directing a live action feature film as well. So I don't know. We'll see. Like, if season 2 comes out and it's just as underwhelming, it's gonna be rough, and it's gonna make me really question whether or not he should be directing a movie. So we'll see, but it's coming, whether we want it to or not. All right. Next story. There's another Star Trek movie in development. This is coming from Deadline. The studio has tapped Toby Haynes to direct a new film that expands on the Star Trek universe, with Seth Grahame-Smith penning the script J.J. Abrams' Bad Robot is producing. The project is an origin story that takes place decades before the 2009 Star Trek film. The final chapter in the main series, Star Trek IV, remains in active development. So yeah, they're working on a Star Trek prequel film, and it's a prequel specifically to the J.J. Abrams Star Trek movies. I know that, like, the way Star Trek works is that isn't it like The Legend of Zelda, where there are like different timelines and that they kind of don't connect with one another. I don't listen. I've only seen like the first 2 J.J. Abrams Star Trek movies and literally nothing else. So honestly, I defer to you guys. Like, are you guys interested in this at all? Like, in a prequel to the J.J. Abrams Star Trek movies? I will say, I don't really believe that the Star Trek 4 is going to happen, because from what I remember, the main problem with Star Trek 4 was that the actors wanted too much money. And I just don't think that you can justify a like, looking at the box office of the first 3 movies, I just don't think that you can justify an expensive Star Trek 4. So I don't know if I believe that that's ever going to end up happening. But yeah, I mean, a prequel movie with a new cast, like, sure. And it's like, but that's also like, would a prequel movie even revolve around, like, if it's set decades prior, it wouldn't even revolve around Captain Kirk or whatever, right? So it would have to be like different characters. Are there different characters in Star Trek lore from the past that you could make a movie about, or would they all have to be original characters? I don't even know why I'm speculating. I don't know anything about this franchise. You let me know in the comments down below. All right, next story. So we got some actresses being looked at for Supergirl in the DCU. It's coming from Deadline. DC Studios is planning to test actresses soon to star in Supergirl, and that Millie Alcock, Amelia Jones, and Meg Donnelly are in the mix. So this is Amelia Jones. She was in Coda, which actually won Best Picture the year that it came out, and yeah, she's a really good actress. Millie Alcock, this is her. She was, of course, in House of the Dragon. She played Rhaenyra Targaryen, I think her name was. I don't know, Game of Thrones names. Stupid fantasy bullshit. And this is Meg Donnelly. Apparently, she's in like these like Disney Channel movies, or they might be on Disney Plus, but they're what you think of, from what I understand, when you think of a Disney Channel original movie, and she's mainly in those movies. I guess from just like a off the bat visual point of view, Meg Donnelly kind of seems like the best pick, just because it seems like she's the only one here that's like a natural blonde. But honestly, at least from everything that I've seen, and I know nothing about Meg Donnelly, I feel like Millie Alcock is probably the best pick. I mean, first of all, what she showed off in House of the Dragon is pretty impressive. I thought she was really great in that show. And especially because James Gunn has talked about how Supergirl in the DCU, at least at the beginning, is going to be kind of a jaded character, because, she like watched her planet explode and all that. So she basically saw the extinction of her race and whatnot. So she's a jaded character, and she kind of has like this hatred for life, which I can relate. so yeah, and we saw in House of the Dragon that like Millie Alcock, like, she's got that dog in her, like she can go dark. So I feel like, just based on from what I've seen from these actresses, right, one of them I've seen literally nothing, I feel like you probably want to go with Millie Alcock, especially when we're thinking about the direction that they're taking this character. But obviously James Gunn is gonna, like, he knows his story and he's gonna see the screen test, so it's not even really worth. My opinion is on anything is not worth anything, but especially on this, like we kind of just have to wait and see what they pick. But yeah, and I will say they're not clear about whether or not these are screen tests for like Superman Legacy or for Superman or for Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow, right? The Supergirl movie that they're wanting to make. So yeah, like I still don't like. It's not confirmed that Supergirl is showing up in Superman Legacy. At this point, we probably don't want her to show up just because there are so many other heroes in that movie. But we'll see. All right. Last story of the day. We got some seeming confirmation that Pedro Pascal is in fact going to be playing Reed Richards in the MCU. So it's coming from CBR. Pascal reportedly left Weapons, that's the name of the movie, Weapons, due to scheduling conflicts between the horror flick and the MCU's upcoming Fantastic Four. Marvel originally aimed to film in the spring, but since it was pushed back, Pascal was forced to choose between the two. So I guess all the other news there is that Fantastic Four has seemingly pushed back its filming start date. But yeah, that's another thing here is that in the language of by the way, this is all coming from Jeff Schneider. He's like an insider guy, and it's like when you read his blog post, like he's saying that that Fantastic Four is like moving its production start date, and in his language, he's like pretty much stating that Pedro Pascal is playing Reed Richards. Because to be clear, it was never confirmed that he was playing Reed Richards. It was only reported that he was like the front runner. So this is basically confirmation that yeah, he is going to be our Reed Richards, and I still like the casting. I mean, there's a surprising amount of negativity about it, and I think a lot of it comes from people feeling like the Chris Pratt effect for Pedro Pascal of like, oh, they're putting him in everything, and I don't really understand that because it's like, okay, as the Mandalorian, but he's barely in that, really. Like, he's under a mask the whole time, and it's not even him under the mask. You're only hearing his voice, and, you know, it's like, yeah, he's also has The Last of Us, but okay, it's okay, yeah, he's front and center for one show, and then he's gonna be in the MCU potentially. I don't know, like I don't disagree. I disagree that he's being like shoved in our faces, especially because he's never like bad. Like he's never miscast in anything that they put him in, right? Because it's not like with like Chris Pratt and Mario, to where it's like Chris Pratt gave a middling performance in Mario, you know. In Garfield, it looks like Chris Pratt just doesn't care about that performance. I have never seen Pedro Pascal phone in a performance in anything. Literally every time I see him, he's awesome. Even in Wonder Woman 84, he is like the standout performance in that movie. So, like Pedro Pascal also he never phones in a role. But then you also have other people that feel he's miscast, and that's kind of where I throw my hands up because I'm like, listen, I don't read comic books. I don't really know, I guess, how Reed Richards is supposed to act, but it's like, I from what I understand, maybe it's just that Reed Richards is supposed to be like the smartest guy in the room, and he's supposed to be kind of serious and socially awkward and whatnot. And it's like people are saying like that's just not the vibe I get from Pedro Pascal, and it's like, you guys know he's an actor, right? You guys know he's like a world-class actor. It's like he'll act like that. It's like maybe he doesn't have a role that like immediately points to that, but they have like screen tests and whatnot, and I'm sure he gave a screen test, and I'm sure he killed it because he's a really great actor. So I don't know. I'm perfectly fine with him playing Reed Richards, but if you're like a super duper Fantastic Four fan and you have your reasons for not thinking he's the right pick, feel free to let me know in the comments down below. And you can tell me if it's about the race swap thing as well. If you're like, oh, it needs to be white. It's like, he just played Joel, and it was great. Everybody loved it. So I genuinely don't care about that part as well. But yeah, that's about it for the news this week. Let's get into what I've been watching and or playing, because I'm also playing a video game. Yeah, I'm currently playing Arkham Asylum. Trying to see if I can get through the Arkham games before Suicide Squad. Doesn't look like I'm going to accomplish that. But because I'm still playing Arkham Asylum. But yeah, I'm playing Arkham Asylum, and it's really great. I think that, I'm going to get to City and Night, but I decided to start with Origins just to be cute. But yeah, now that I'm at Asylum, there's no doubt that Arkham Asylum is, in terms of the vibes and the art style and whatnot, it really is just the best of the Arkham series. That macabre, gothic architecture and vibes and just the lighting, it's awesome. It really is. And I will say, though, in terms of the mechanics and the like when it comes to combat and even stealth, it is by far the most dated of the of the four games. It doesn't feel as smooth. Combat doesn't feel quite as satisfying, especially coming off of Arkham Origins. And the other thing I'll say as well is that I think it's probably the worst story of the Arkham games. So far it's not doing anything particularly interesting. Like, when I look at Arkham Origins, that was a really fantastic origin story of Batman and the Joker meeting for the first time. Like that was a genuinely super compelling story. And Arkham Asylum so far, and the story is, to be fair, kind of fleshed out by the character bios and the audio tapes, but in terms of just the front facing story that we're being delivered, it's very just one note. It's like, oh, the lunatics are running the asylum now. Batman has to stop them, and they're not doing anything super interesting with Batman or the Joker. So that's the one thing I'll say. It's listen, Arkham Asylum, it's a classic. Don't get me wrong. Still having a really fun time with it, but it feels the most dated for sure, and it's the first game. So I'll probably hopefully finish it by next week. I doubt that I'm going to get through the trilogy by Suicide Squad, Kill the Justice League. Oh, I should also mention, I'm playing it on Switch, actually. I bought the Switch port, and weirdly enough, it doesn't run great. Now, I don't remember how it ran on the PS3 and Xbox 360, because the frame rate is, I don't have the biggest eye for this, but it's I don't think it's running at a consistent 30. Don't get me wrong, it's more than playable, but I feel like it's not running at a consistent 30. And I feel like that's just weird, because it's I've heard, and I'm going to get to it, but I've heard that Arkham City actually runs really well on Switch, but for whatever reason, Arkham Asylum isn't as polished as you'd want it to be. And yes, I will be trying Arkham Knight on Switch at some point. So yeah, but don't get me wrong, it's more than playable. And listen, the fact that I'm even playing Arkham Asylum portably is fucking awesome. Don't get it wrong. That is the dream as a kid, from when I was a kid. It's if I could go back in time and tell myself, hey, one day you're gonna play Arkham Asylum on a portable console, that would blow my mind. So that's also really cool. So yeah, Arkham Asylum, it's great, but if I'm comparing it to Arkham Origins, which I just played, bit dated, story not really as good. All right. Next up, I watched Echo, and it's not very good. I'd say, man, I'm genuinely disappointed. The trailer was so great. And this show kind of it proves me something that I've been saying kind of right, in that I feel like people tend to focus on the wrong things, right? When we get a slew of bad Marvel movies with Thor Ragnarok and the Marvels and whatnot, people are saying, oh, the MCU movies are too funny now. They need to get dark and gritty and serious and blah, 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 blah. And it's sure, more variety for sure would be good, but that's not the problem with Thor Love and Thunder isn't that it's a comedy. The problem with the Marvels isn't that it's too lighthearted. That's also not the problem with Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. The problem is that those movies just were not executed well. That is the ultimate problem. Are there maybe too many lighthearted Marvel movies, and should they balance it out with more darker and serious material? Sure. I'm not going to deny that. But the problem with those movies were not the tone. It's execution. Because at Echo, we have what we've been asking for. It's dark, it's violent, it treats itself more like a drama. It's the dramatic moments aren't undercut by jokes or anything or humor. And it's still not executed well. So it's like this show kind of just proves that it's like you can't. It's not about the direction that you take a project in. It's about in how well it's executed, and that's the thing with the show is that like they're basically like it does stuff with like Echo and her family and her heritage, and it's like that stuff is conceptually interesting, right? Her coming back with her family and coming to terms with the trauma of her past and whatnot, and it's like that stuff is conceptually interesting, right? Her relationship with Kingpin, the father-daughter bond, right? The trauma that she's had with him and the manipulation by him. That stuff is also conceptually interesting. And, it just doesn't come together well at the end of the day. I think that, and it really is, I feel like all just on the filmmaking behind the scenes. I just don't think that these guys did a particularly good job with it. As far as positives, though, I mean, listen, it's got some great action. Not a ton of it, I will add. Really, like 2 scenes. But those 2 scenes, pretty fucking good. Like, I'll say this. They give you a Daredevil one-shotter. I cummed. You give me a Daredevil one-shot fight scene that's great, I will come. I'm not going to deny this. There's also like a fight scene in like a roller rink or whatever. Pretty fucking great. Like really good. I'll say this as well. I like the whole I like Echo. I like the actress playing her. Like I think she's good. But I'll say this as well. I think that they just don't. And I have to wonder if this is also maybe part of just like the whole like 5-episode thing where this is another show kind of like Moon Knight maybe, where it's like there's a lot of ideas being thrown at me, but you're just not developing them well enough. Where it's like, I remember with Moon Knight, I'm like, okay, so this is this like character study of this guy with multiple personality disorders, and by the way, there's a god, and he's a kaiju, and he's a kaiju god fighting, and it's like, you're doing so many things, and you only have 6 episodes, bro. Like, you're not fleshing any of these out well enough. I feel like it's kind of also maybe the case here, where it's like, I feel like maybe they should have picked a lane where maybe you do a show about Echo rejuvenating her relationship with her family, or you do a show where Echo is like Wilson Fisk's lieutenant and whatnot, because I feel like these two concepts are both happening in this one show, and when they come together, they don't come together well. So I don't know. I'm also trying to like avoid spoilers as well. So I don't want to like spoil anything. So it's not particularly good. I think it's probably better than like something like Moon Knight, because at the end of the day, because with something like Moon Knight, like by the end of it, I'm like, dude, I don't even know what you're trying to say with this show. The themes of Echo are there. Like I get what they're trying to say. They're not saying it well, but I get what they're trying to say. It's a cohesive vision. So I know, listen, MCU Disney Plus shows, the bar is so low that I have to give it props for that. So yeah, it's ultimately a disappointment. The marketing for the show was a little too good in the sense that it's like, that was such a good trailer, and I was just ultimately disappointed by the show. And I'll say this as well. This whole like Marvel Spotlight thing. This is a show that stands on its own. You don't need to watch anything in order to watch it. It's like that is complete nonsense. The first half of like the first episode is literally a series of like flashbacks from Hawkeye. And even like the Daredevil show where it's like no. If you're going to watch this show, not only should you watch Hawkeye to like really feel what Echo is going through, you should also probably watch the first 3 seasons of Daredevil in order to like know where Kingpin is at in this story. And then yeah, by the end of it, they tease shows to come. So it's like this whole like Marvel Spotlight thing, man. This isn't we're telling independent stories, you know, that isn't tying into the larger universe. Complete nonsense. Maybe they do that in the future. Like maybe that's their maybe that will be true for future Marvel Spotlight projects. But this is not one of those projects, and they just decided to throw the Marvel Spotlight banner onto it, probably just in order to see if they can garner some interest in this show. So yeah, I don't know. I'm yapping at this point, but pretty disappointed by Echo. And yeah, let's get into the last thing that I'm going to talk about today. I also watched Percy Jackson and the Olympians, episode 5. I've come to terms with this show. It's not as good as I want it to be. You know, Percy Jackson is my Harry Potter. It's my childhood book franchise that I loved as a child, and I want this to be as grand as the Harry Potter franchise. This show simply isn't good enough to do that. That being said, it's still enjoyable for enough for me. You know, I enjoyed Percy and Annabeth, their relationship deepening in this episode. I especially liked Annabeth's character turn in here. I thought that the Grover like playing 4D chess with Ares was maybe a little silly. Not the dialogue was like a bit clunky, but overall, I think this really was a Percy and Annabeth episode, and I think it did it decently well. I just think at the end of the day, the performances in this show aren't great. Like I don't think these kids are like great in these roles. I don't think that the dialogue and the writing is especially great in the show. And and you can't just get around the fact that it looks like a Disney Plus show. It doesn't look all that great either. So I really wanted to love this show. I'm not loving it, but I am enjoying it. Like I'm going along for the ride because it's not bad. It's just not great. So yeah. That's about all I'm going to talk about today. Let me know what you thought about any and all of these topics, okay? Who cares about what I have to say? I'm a loser. All of my opinions are worthless. Yours is the one that matters. So let me know in the comments down below, and I will see you in the next video. Goodbye.